Welcome back to another episode of Stand on Guard. I'm David Crayden, and it's such a joy to have Katie Pasitney with me again
You.
today. And Katie, last time we talked, I think you were still trying to figure things out in so many ways. And last weekend was the 30-day mark of the massacre. And I know that
Mhm.
must have really affected you. It affected me. I thought December 6th, December 7th. I said, it's been a month. And just my first thought was, how is Katie doing? And so, was it a hard weekend?
Yeah, our family has definitely been struggling. I mean, we're not afraid to say that. Who wouldn't be struggling after what the world has just witnessed and the massacre of these big, beautiful prehistoric animals that were not around for just a few years? They were decades old. I don't need to tell all of you that. But it's been challenging. It's been challenging there's been anxiety, there's been sleepless nights, there is PTSD. There's personally, I'm happy to share with other people. I just want people to know that they're not alone from all the messages that I get, panic attacks. Um, and it's something that is very new, but I think it's just going to be part of the process. And the one big thing that feels so well or so good is that we have so much support. There's a lot of people that are carrying the same burdens that we are. The sleepless nights, the anxiety, hearing that those gunshots go off in your head, and just what we all witnessed, and so all those people have been reaching out. There's been hundreds of people reaching out across the world, and it just feels really good that we can walk through this journey together, because no one should ever have to walk through this alone. And none of us were expecting, I don't think, what we witnessed. I mean, we thought, time and time again, I get messages that people said, I just thought that we would get through this with the ostriches alive.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think we both did,
yeah.
and it was almost beyond shocking that it didn't turn out that way. But as for the future, I know you were telling me yesterday that you and your mom want to continue
Yep.
with an ostrich farm, but not
Yep.
necessarily 300 to 400 ostriches,
Right.
maybe 50. And what kind of farm do you imagine this? Almost like a part petting zoo, part remembrance, part a place for people to come and reflect on animals and themselves. How do you see this new development going?
I think as we go forward, it's changed in our minds quite a bit in the last 30 days. But the one thing that keeps a light in our heart is just having ostriches again, because they've been such an important part of our life, and we are huge animal lovers. And it would just feel so wonderful to have them back. We still believe, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but I mean, it's a very real one, that there's missing ostriches. We firmly
Mhm.
believe that. And we want to believe that this is such a big story that one day we will get some of our own babies back. Maybe that's wishful thinking. I don't know, but there's whistleblowers everywhere. And this would be one miracle before Christmas. That would be amazing. But even after Christmas is fine. A remembrance, legacy farm, something where we have so many people we've met, and there's been thousands of people through this farm, that somewhere where my mom could continue to educate and bring awareness of how amazing these ostriches are, these prehistoric wonders that became beacons of hope for many across the world, to get up close, personal, but also have time with my mom's knowledge, our family's knowledge about these animals, the compassion, the healing that they can bring, and to maybe even hatch and incubate and just show people it is a beautiful, beautiful thing when you get to see those little babies running around, and yeah, just to have a legacy remembrance ranch or a legacy remembrance farm, and then also get to go on a healing journey with everybody that has been on this really um, catastrophic disaster that we've been through. and what we've witnessed. So we want to put all of our energy into something that's going to be beautiful, but not just for us to help heal, but for the world, and invite people from all around the world to come and see us and to come see the ostriches.
I think it's going to be a huge success, especially if you and your mom are involved. I think it's going to be a huge success. You talk about missing ostriches. I watched your broadcast yesterday. I never missed one. And in fact, I posted it on X because you put it on Facebook. I'll put it on X. And I thought 84 missing ostriches. Now, I was covering the story throughout the whole time. We had people from the farm literally standing around with their little gas stoves and tents at this parking lot for this Super Save depot in Surrey, BC. And of course, we knew there was something very strange going on because of the smell, the fact that nobody was allowed to go near these bins. There was something very surreptitious going on, something very sinister going on.
Yeah.
But you believe there's 84 of these ostriches that were not accounted for at the end of the day.
So there's a few things. I mean, if you start looking at everything again, from the day that Super Save came on site and they were part of the disposal process, and we had garbage bin after garbage bin leaving here. Those garbage bins were leaving with police escorts all the time. Those garbage bins were not being sanitized. Those garbage bins were in and out of here, but there was a large number of garbage bins. So then towards the middle of the time, say about 2 weeks in with Canadian Food Inspection Agency here, those garbage bins started to slow down, even though that they claimed that they were for garbage, they were for their lunch garbage, hazmat suit garbage, and you name it. They said, no, this is just garbage from our officers from CFIA. So for some reason, the amount of officers didn't go down and the CFIA agents actually went up, but there was less garbage bins. Now that came at the same time when the number 79 appeared on the inside of our kill pen. We don't know what that number 79 means, but it is about the right number that approximately of ostriches that we were seeing the number and the population of our ostriches go down. And we were not the only ones. Everyone across the world was witnessing that when we asked you to count with us. When Mike Rood, a retired veteran, it was here and he was hiking up the mountain and taking photographs every day. Then we watched these bins come in and out of here and leave, and the protocols being broken. There was an incident at the Super Safe location once the birds were deceased. Then we weren't following, but some supporters who were definitely passionate about what was going on followed those bins. Somewhere through the Lower Mainland, they saw them. They went and they saw that they went to the Super Save in Surrey. And once they went to the Super Save in Surrey, they stopped and they stayed with those bins. Now, there was a couple bins there, and they were pretty sure that some had went on to a dump. That's for a landfill. We just got notified from a lady at the Vancouver landfill that they did have to sign NDAs, but when they dumped there, they only counted roughly about 230 ostriches that were dumped. So where were the remaining ostriches? So it is in our belief as well that the Super Save in Surrey got stuck with a bin of the deceased ostriches that they could not get rid of. And then when they got stuck with that bin, well, they had the bin inside. There was an excavator and a packer, a roller, at a lot behind them, behind the Super Save. And they were doing excavating. And we firmly believe that some ostriches Super Save got stuck with, dumped them in the back of their lot and buried them, and did a roller packer over them. And then they put a whole bunch of bins over the fresh spot that they just excavated, packed, and put their bins over top. Then they proceeded to take those bins and rinse them and wash them down the storm drains in Surrey. Those were the same storm bins that were seen to have bloody hay on them, and they were the exact same bins that left our farm. But there is still missing ostriches. And then we go back to when they were supposed to only be maintaining custody on our farm. But Canadian Food Inspection Agency was operating between the hours of 2 in the morning to 4:30 in the morning. So what was Canadian Food Inspection Agency doing in the middle of the night, working hours behind our farm and with the ostriches? So they had lights football fields blaring at the highway and against anyone that would be able to see in. But when you could get a clear view between the football field kind of floodlights that they were blinding everybody with, you could actually see that they had all their own operating lights behind, and they were working in the middle of the night. So there's a lot of speculation here, but there's two names that I like for this, and that's the Great Canadian Nightmare and the Great Canadian Ostrich Heist, because it is in our firm belief that they have taken some of our living ostriches, definitely our blood from the ostriches, and scientific technology. Yeah. So there's so many moving parts to this. And I really do believe that we're on a really good path of finding out the truth. And because this is so big, I just believe in my full heart and with my faith in God that the truth will be brought to light. I really, and our family does.
Well, of course, a lot of us were speculating that what they were doing in those wee small hours of the morning were physically blending these ostriches, destroying them. But I think it's just as believable to say that they were taking them off the farm for their own purposes. I think that's highly believable. But here's what strikes me, though. You talk about non-disclosure agreements being signed.
Mm-hmm.
Much or all of this activity in the aftermath of this massacre was not just improper, incompetent. It was unlawful. It was illegal what they did. Completely illegal. You cannot just dump hundreds of ostriches at a landfill site and say, whoops. Clearly, and as I've spoken to people who know this intimately, and they say, no, they by law, they had to wrap each ostrich in cellophane and bury them 9 feet deep. And that is just scratching the regulations. But the way they brought these ostriches off the farm, the way they disposed of them was not just improper, irregular, it was unlawful. And how it strikes me as I was going to say the height of the deep state, but that's a bit of an oxymoron. The depth of the deep state. When people are somehow told, just sign this non-disclosure agreement, it's like it never happened.
Yeah.
That to me is just absolute corruption. It must make you as angry as it makes me, actually. They seemingly got away with it.
Oh, so Super Save, let's go down this. Super Save is not certified to handle biohazardous waste. So we have one or two things that are really the truth here. One, there was no virus, and they had no concern over that being that there was a virus. And so then the ostriches were killed for no reason. Or two, they completely didn't follow their own protocols, their own policies, and the own biohazardous waste agreements for transportation. They hired a non-certified company to handle biohazardous waste. The ostriches were stationary. The ostriches were not, there were no flight risk. We were farther away from any of the commercial poultry facilities. We were really no risk out here at all. We were less of a risk than them taking this waste if it was so biohazardous. And it was the most virulent threat of avian influenza in Canada. And they handled it with no care, no concern at all, no PPE. They were disposing them, like you said, in these bins with liners. They didn't have the proper placards. They didn't have the proper certification. And then they're taking them along the highway, and they're actually taking them from our farm where they were not, like I said, they were not going anywhere. They were contained. The ostriches didn't fly. They were hundreds of kilometers away from a commercial poultry facility. They took them down the highway through the Fraser Valley, one of the most impacted areas of avian influenza with the most commercial poultry facilities. They drove them through the Fraser Valley and they drove them and dumped them near a city. So none of it makes sense. And I think that there has to be a lot of questions that have to be answered. And I really want to see that there's accountability. I mean, I think the accountability word has come up thousands of times through people's vocabulary with the Canadian Food Inspection Agency: transparency, accountability. And again, like I said in my live yesterday, and I've been saying it, accountability doesn't always look fast and loud. But one thing that we're seeing with the hundreds of messages that are coming through is that the world is holding them accountable and they're not going to get off this one. There's answers that have to be have to come, and we have to figure out, was this because that there was no virulent threat, or did they actually just go break all of their own laws?
Yeah, it would seem that way. Somebody sent me a clip from the Parliamentary Press Gallery dinner. I think it was last weekend or a week ago. Anyway, everybody was talking about Pierre Poilievre being so funny at this, because he's not known for his sense of humor. But one of your supporters sent me a clip of Mark Carney, and he actually talked about the ostriches.
Really?
Now, not very much, but I wondered, did Mark Carney notice any of this at all, or was he completely insulated? And the fact that he would joke about this.
He joked about it.
He joked about, I didn't think I would have so many massive issues to deal with as prime minister. And he went through the ostriches in BC. That was his only reference. But to me, it indicated he knew about this, so much so that it would come up in his monologue, which was not very funny. But the fact he would raise it in his monologue, to me, suggested he was very well aware of this and somehow thinks he can just laugh all of this off right now, as he does everything else with his who cares. Yeah. But I think you're right. It's not going to end. And no. It sort of takes me to the next question in terms of, we were talking the last time we talked about a voice for farmers. It's evolved since then into if you could actually tell me the actual name of the organization. I think you're calling it a Farmers Federation, which is probably broader in scope than you had in mind. But I know it's still evolving. I know you don't have a lot of details, but in a nutshell, how do you see this Farmers Federation operating?
I think we just want to add a layer of protection. There isn't a layer of protection for farms right now, and we're being waged war on. There's a war being waged on our farms and our agricultural sector, and we'd have to be blind not to see that. We're seeing it across the world, actually, and we want to see that there's going to be an organization in which we're going to be part of, that is going to hold these governing bodies and agencies accountable for our livelihoods, our land, our futures, our animals, and want a seat at the table of making the decisions about the culling, about the process, about what are we doing for overall outbreak response. What are we doing to ensure that our farmers are going to be protected and that we're not going to be steamrolled? So it is evolving, because we want to make sure that it's going to be the appropriate platform that's going to offer the most protection. So is that it's a federation? I know we've bounced around a few things, but there is one now that we're really passionate and pretty excited about. I'll probably have more information on that for you next time, is when we can. We're just with the lawyers with that right now. And there is a lot of good stuff happening, and it's going to include all of you. It's going to include the farmers. It's going to include the hardworking individuals that have dedicated their lives to making sure that we have a nutritional food supply, to ensure that we have scientific innovation and we have opportunity. But it's, we're really excited about it. And that's what kind of keeps us going every day, is that this stops happening. This could never happen again. Just to think of if there was hundreds of cows And if they're all being shot with 22s in a field, or where do we bring in the ethical portion and moral compass to what we're doing, and the quality and the respect for life? I don't know where Canada lost its way, but we have to start having a respect for life. And if we become united, we have the ability to change our future. We have to stay away from the division, and we have to see what is really happening, and we need to protect our farmers. So, I mean, it's not even just our farmers that are under attack. It's our seeds, it's our gardens, it's how we're growing our food in, which is farmers, but in our crops. It is as simple as our gardens. I mean, this is Canadian Food Inspection Agency has so much power. We need to step in and make them accountable, and take some of our power back. This is our take our power back 2026, I think, and I think we just need to rise up from the ground up. And Canadians are so strong. That's the one thing that we've seen through this, is not even just the world that has poured their hearts into these ostriches that became beacons of hope, but Canadians are resilient, and we're ready to wake up. We're ready to see what's really happening. And if we don't do it now, I really believe that it's going to be too late at some point. And this is the perfect opportunity, when we've all got to see the belly of the beast. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency exposed themselves, and they exposed their ego, their gross amount of power, and their theatrical display of punishment, and the abuse of our resources like the RCMP to protect them, to follow through with such horrific duties. So I think, yeah, there's a lot of potential here. And that is what keeps us going, is knowing that hopefully we can put everything that we've been through, all of the people that have joined this cause, and we can put this all to the pain and the suffering into action, positive action to protect us going forward.
Well, I think anybody would agree that you fought a war. You often described it that way to me during this all of the turmoil you went through.
Yeah.
And just like any war, there are casualties, there are fatalities, there's tragedies. And all of that death and destruction only makes any sense if something was achieved.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly why you're doing what you're doing now. Because if you just sat there and said, well, what can I do? The whole system is against me. The establishment is against us. What can we do? But you're doing everything except that. You're fighting back, and you're taking on this system. And I tell you, I spoke at an event here in Ottawa a couple of weeks ago, probably about 200 people there. All they wanted to hear about was what happened at the ostrich farm. They all followed the story every day. And that's what they wanted to hear about. And I get emails from these people every day about infractions that are occurring with the CFIA every day, every week here in Ontario, or farmer friends they have in the prairies or in other parts of the province. And they're saying, this is just so commonplace. Why isn't somebody fighting this? And I'm saying, wait, it's happening. It's going to happen. And because Katie is fighting back. So I think this would make no sense at all unless there was some resolve at the end of this to say it's not going to happen again, or it sure as hell isn't going to happen the way it happened the last time. Yeah. And I think that's what you're doing so effectively.
It is. And my mom, she's a fighter. I wouldn't have. It's where I've learned. You don't give up. We're a family that fights hard, and we love each other so much. And we love hard, we fight hard, and we never give up. And that is the one thing I think that is our true superpower, is just being resilient and knowing that out of anything that is so bad, something so good can be manifested from that. And when this all started, I don't know if you remember me saying ever that God has a plan. And I said, God already wrote the story. He knows the ending, and all we have to do is trust. And in this, we didn't see the ending that all of us wanted, but we do believe as a family that this was for a higher purpose. This was for something so much bigger that the ostriches ended up being ground zero. We were ground zero for change. I said that too at the beginning. There's all these things that came, and you don't know where they come from, but it became very clear we were ground zero for change. And these ostriches, not one of those bullets should have ever been fired, but almost 1,000 bullets rang out in the middle of the night and took their life in the most inhumane, crazy way, that it can only make sense that if this is for something better, something good is going to come out of this. And we will make sure that something good comes out of this, because they didn't deserve that. No animal deserves to be killed in the way that they did. It's easy to feel, small and in the face of our broken systems, systemic failure, and we feel powerless with institutions. But I think we just have to remember, standing together in unity is unity. United, we have power. They don't want us to use our voices. They want us to be silenced. And this was a theatrical display of punishment for using our voice, for standing up against an institution or an agency that had so much power. And we just have to remember that right now we have the momentum. And the quieter we get, we will start to lose our power again. So just remember to use your voice, rise up, protect your neighbors. If they're a farmer, or if you know a farmer, or you go to the farmer's market, reach out to those farmers and say that you have their back. This is where we have to stand united. So yeah, it just only makes sense if we just we make a change, and our voice is the spark, and it can ignite a fire. So we just have to stay united. United is my word of the year for 2026, I think. United and unity. Yeah, unity. And and accountability.
Yeah, you're taking me back to my youth group days.
Yeah.
It only takes a spark to get a fire burning. That's exactly
there
it.
You go.
And that is exactly what you've done here. I sent you a clip, and I really encourage you to watch this. The Piers Morgan. There was a woman on the show, and after listening to this, I said, "My God, this is exactly what happened at Universal Ostrich Farms for different reasons,
right?
But it was the same effect." This is a woman in the UK, which has the same kind of onerous laws for censorship that Mark Carney wants to impose on Canada. So she used the word, I'm not going to get into the word because it'll just get me in trouble. She used the word, an offensive word, in a private text message, not publicly. She didn't go in social media and say that. She used an offensive word in a private text message. And what she got in return for that was not only arrested, but she got 11 police officers at her front door. They proceeded to walk into her house, walk upstairs into her bathroom where she was taking a bath, and just stay there until she got out of the bath. Now, my first reaction to this was, who should have been arrested here? Probably the cops. At the very least, this is sexual harassment, if not sexual assault. And how did they get away with this? Well, because she was the villain for saying something offensive, because speech now is just something that is so easily used by the government. But here's what I thought. I made the connection to you because she said at the end of this, she was asked, well, how does this impact free speech in the UK? Well, she said, well, obviously we don't have much left. But she said, but here's the lesson. She said, for me, the people we have to fear now are not necessarily so much the criminals, but the police.
Yeah.
Who would come basically break and enter, come into my house, come into my bathroom while I'm in the bath. 10 of the cops were male. 1 was female. And she literally had to negotiate with the 10 males to get out of the bathroom. And to me, that said it all, because when you were facing all of this intimidation, all of this persecution, it was the CFIA goons and it was the RCMP backing them up that allowed the illegality to continue.
Yeah.
And this is why, I know that there's a $50,000 reward out there for any information leading to some kind of charge against these guilty parties. But I can tell you this, just as you won't rest until justice is done, I am not going to rest until somebody is charged for doing what they did to you, your mom, your family, your farm, and those ostriches. Because this to me is beyond the pale.
It is. You guys have to remember too, like going backwards, Canadian Food Inspection Agency never set foot on our property from February 26th to September 22nd. So again, we should walk through the whole story again one day, or I should. It's been a lot. And as I said, we're just trying to, I think, mentally get into a little bit of a more stable place after what we've witnessed and what has happened here. But February 26th, they were not on our farm. So they hadn't been on our farm for no soil samples, testing, water samples. If they really thought that we were one of the true most violent threats of avian influenza in Canada, they had not been on our farm. So then there was no checking of our quarantine, checking of our procedures, and no testing. So then they show up on September 22nd with that gross amount of police force, and that was the next time we saw them again. So Canadian Food Inspection Agency, there is so much wrong with the way they played out this, but the way they handled this for 11 months. And the no testing to the no communication. I mean, they were here for the 4 weeks, and the only way we could communicate with them was by email. We had police liaisons that would go take the messages like we were in high school, but there was no communication. We could go by layer of what was wrong here, but at the very end was that they waged war on our farm. We're an innocent family farm, and they brought weapons. And then they proceeded to kill everything that we've loved for 35 years. And the world fell in love with. And they did that in a manner with 22 long shells, which I'm not an avid hunter, but I do know enough from my brother and my father being hunters that a 22 is not even a regulated way or a method of killing deer or coyotes, or because they just doesn't have enough power. So the 300 and 350 pound bodied animals that we had that would have been running for their lives were getting shot with not even the appropriate weapon to try to humanely, quickly to kill them. So there was just, but they had not been on our farm for almost 6 months up to that, the September situation. So we just want accountability, just like all of you around the world. We're piecing together the puzzle, like I said, trying to get our bearings. It is still really hard. We barely make it to the end of the laneway. We do not spend much time down there. Those empty pens are a stark and eerie reminder of the agency's power and abuse of power. And it's a really, really scary reminder of what's coming. If we don't use our voices and if we don't stand up, we are looking at the 2030 agenda. We are looking at he who controls the food controls the people, that we shouldn't have our land and we don't have the rights to it, that even though we have our animals and our property, they aren't ours. 11 months ago, I would have never thought this way, but it is very clear that we are in a lot of trouble if we do not use our voices and we do not become united, that if we don't fight for our country, we're not going to have one to fight for. And so I just, this is a war against our farmers and our livelihoods and our food supply. And we need to stand up. We need to rise up, and we need to protect our children and our grandchildren and the beautiful country that we do have, but also our freedom. And it's now or never. I really feel that so deeply in my heart that it's now or never.
Yes, it's definitely now or never. You mentioned telling this whole story from the start. Well, I won't elaborate, but I think that's exactly what we're going to do.
Yeah,
Is tell this whole story from the start. It's a story that needs to be told over and over again.
it is.
It's part of history, and it needs to stay part of history. I guess the final question. I've been helping out with fundraising the last couple of weeks, and I'm going to continue to do that. And I think
Thank you.
your answer to this last question will be part of my next fundraising video. But it is an honor for me to be able to assist in any way I can, especially with this. Do you have any idea at this point how, or any more details about how onerous the financial penalties could be, are going to be, in terms of what you and your mom and this farm are going to have to owe the system? Oh, we know the Supreme Court ordered you to pay the legal costs of the CFIA.
Yeah.
Have you heard anything more about the possible penalty of paying the cost of this terrible occupation, or anything else that they might saddle you with? Because, and second part of that question, how important is it for people to realize fundraising has to continue, because you don't have $1 million in the bank. You were not amassing a fortune in the
Yeah.
last 11 months while you were being sat on and stepped on and steamrolled by the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, so in terms of what do you think you're going to have to owe in the end, and how important is fundraising to continue vociferously right now?
Fundraising is so important, and I hate saying it, because in the past 11 months, I think people forgot to how expensive, when they cut off all your income and they cut off all your way of, we were just about to put a company, the contracts together for therapeutics, for a healthy antibody solution to the, the devastating vaccine illness problem that we have. We were so close to putting contracts together, to starting a company, and then they shut off all of everything. They shut off our income. We had to still buy feed and pay for feed. You had to pay for hay, survival. You mean there's still bills to pay and keep your lights on. So there was fundraising that went for that. Then there was all of our legal. Then we had to go through a few lawyers, which has been a long journey, but it's been a really educational one. And here we are sitting now with nothing, and still have now to pick up the pieces, decide where we're going to go from here. And the legal bills are still piling up, because we're going to go another, we want to start protecting farmers. But with that, we also want to take whatever we can and whatever will be left over from the fundraising, putting it into what we're creating for more of a fund, protection for farmers to be able to use if they are approached with Canadian Food Inspection Agency or the government at their gate. And we're not stopping. We're not going to stop. But that means that, we are still figuring out our way. We're still under quarantine. We're not able to go across the property. That property is not able to be used for anything yet. And so we're battling that with the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, getting it out of quarantine so that we could even start to do something with that again, that could generate income. And that has a mortgage on it, so the costs don't stop. But this is a fight for everybody. We have taken, and I get emotional about it, we've taken the hit, for sure. But it's been worth every step, every week and every month. It's been worth the fight. And even what we all witnessed, we will change the world together. I really firmly believe that within this, we will change the world. The ostriches have already started to change the world. And so this fight isn't over. And fundraising is something that we definitely don't like to ask for, as much as everybody thinks that we're somehow millionaires from this. We're just trying to go forward. But going forward means protecting all of you. And we want to see change. And we're going to not stop until we see change at the highest levels. Sorry.
That's okay.
One of those emotional parts, because it's been traumatic. It's depression. I still have a paraplegic father at home. And a lot of people, I don't think, even put those things together, that here's a man that was stuck in the house and had to realize that everything that he had worked for in his life too was just gone overnight by cowards with guns, and he couldn't do anything. So we're just piecing. We want change. We are fighting for change. We never want any other family to have to go through what we've gone through. And we want to protect all of you around the world that have witnessed and have been impacted by what we've gone through here. And we're going to fight for change, and we're not going to stop. Sorry.
No, I hate to bring up fundraising, because I know it's not something you want to talk about.
No, it isn't.
And I think it's something that's the reason other people should be doing as much of it for you, and because it's not easy to ask. It's never easy to ask for money. People always look at it like, well, I'm sure they don't need this. You do. You need it every cent,
and we're fighting. I promise you, every day we're on our computers. We are fighting for a better Canada, and we're fighting for accountability towards an agency that has stripped not just us, but many of you from the hope that you got attached to, that we would be able to win this without the massacre that happened here, that there was going to be a better way. But we're not going to stop. It's going to be a pause. There's a bit of a pause, but we're going to see accountability, and we're going to see justice.
You will. And I pledge to join you in that struggle, and as I have in the past. So, Katie, thank you so much for joining me today. We'll be obviously talking again about this. The journey begins. The journey has not ended. The journey's beginning here.
Yeah.
This is, I think, why you had to endure a year of hell. So I think because you're going to be bringing a little bit of heaven to a lot of farmers who otherwise would have been subject to that terrible arm of government overreach. And that's what you've done. So thank you for your work. Thank you for all you've done. Thanks. And we're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep fighting. So thank you for that, Katie.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. And thank you for your continued prayers, love, and support. We are still getting so many letters in the mail with prayers. I asked for that a few weeks ago. I continue to ask for prayers, because I believe in prayers, and manifestation is one of the biggest things that you can do. If you ever want to do something along the journey to create some energy towards this battle in the right direction, is pray. We believe just our faith has been the one thing that has really carried us through. So lots of prayers, and thank you, everybody, for being on the journey.
Thank you, Katie.